Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Planescape Torment. Let's go ahead and continue to talk to Dekon and reading the Unbroken Circle of Zerthimon. Actually, let's double check to see if he gained anything new. Doesn't look like it. Is that new? Submerge the Will? No, that's not new. Alright. I just thought it was crap, that's all. Alright, let's go ahead and use the Unbroken Circle and unlock the second Circle of Zerthimon. You slide the plates into the configuration Dekon showed you, and a new ring is revealed. The ring carries the same script as you read before, with the same geometries. You know the symbols and know you can read them. Let's go ahead and read it. Know that flesh cannot mark steel. Know that steel may mark flesh. In knowing this, Zerthimon became free. Know that the tentacled ones were of flesh. They relied on the flesh and used it as tools for their will. One of the places where flesh served their will was the fields of husks on the false worlds of the Illithids. The fields were where the bodies of the people were cast after the Illithids had consumed their brains. When the brain had been devoured, the husks came to be fertilizer to grow the poison-stemmed grasses of the Illithids. Zerthimon worked the fields with no knowing of himself or what he had become. He was a tool of flesh, and the flesh was content. It was upon these fields that Zerthimon came to know the scripture of steel. During one of the turnings, as Zerthimon tilled the fields with his hands, he came across a husk whose brain remained within it. It had not been used as food, yet it was dead. Oh, so I'm going to get the spell Scripture of Steel from this, I assume. I continue reading the circles. The thought that one of the husks had died a death without serving as food for the Illithids was a thought Zerthimon had difficulty understanding. From that thought came the desire to know what had happened to the husk. Embedded in the skull of the husk was a steel blade. It had pierced the bone. Zerthimon realized that this was what had killed the husk. The steel had marked the flesh, but the flesh had not been marked. The flesh had not marked the steel. Zerthimon took the blade and studied its surface. In it, he saw his reflection. It was a reflection of the steel that Zerthimon first knew himself. Its edge was sharp. It was its will the wearer's. It was the blade that would come to be raised against Gith when Zerthimon made the pronouncement of two skies. Continue reading the symbols. Zerthimon kept the blade for many turnings, and many were the thoughts he had about it. He used it in the fields to aid his work. In using it, he thought about how it was not used. The Illithids were powerful. Zerthimon had believed that there was nothing that they did not know, yet the Illithids never carried tools of steel. They only used flesh as tools. Everything was done through flesh, for the tentacled ones were made of flesh, and they knew flesh. Yet steel was superior to flesh. When the blade had killed the husk, it was the flesh that had been weaker than the steel. It was then that Zerthimon came to know that flesh yielded to steel. In knowing that, he came to know that steel was stronger than the Illithids. Steel became the scripture of the people. Know that steel is the scripture by which the people came to know freedom.
What is your will?
Let's see. I learned that not knowing something can be a tool, just like flesh and steel, if, upon encountering it, you attempt to know its nature and how it came to be. I learned that while tending the fields of the Illithids, Zerthimon learned of the nature of steel and how it could be used to defeat the Illithids. Let's go with number 1 again. 600 experience points and an item. You have seen the words and know that, and you have seen beyond them. You have come to know the second circle of Zerthimon. He takes the circle and with a deft motion he twists one of the links so one of the plates slides forth, but strangely enough, the stone still appears intact. He hands the plate to you. Meditate upon this teaching, and the knowing of it shall give you strength. When you have absorbed it, you shall know more. Very well, I will study the circle. Yet I would still know more of Zerthimon's teachings. Alright. Next circle is open. Alrighty. Second circle of Zerthimon. And yes. Okay, so we can do this and get the various Zerthimon spells. Go ahead and copy that spell in. Alright, so that is basically the Bless spell. I suppose you could do all of this and then get rid of Dakan, but Dakan's a decent fighter. If we get, like, 3rd level and up, then I will give them to Zerthimon, as opposed to take them for myself. Third circle, read the third circle. Zerthimon labeled many turnings for the Illithid. Zerthimon labored many turnings for the Illithid Arlathi, twice deceased, and his partnership in the cavernous heavens of the false worlds. His duties would have broken the backs of many others, but Zerthimon labored on, suffering torment and exhaustion. It came to pass that the Illithid Arlathi, twice deceased, ordered Zerthimon before him in his many-veined Galleria. He claimed that Zerthimon had committed slights of obstinance and cowardice against his partnership. The claim had no weight of truth, for Arlathi only wished to know if flames raged within Zerthimon's heart. He wished to know if Zerthimon's heart was one of a slave or of a rebel. Zerthimon surrendered to the Illithid punishment rather than reveal his newfound strength. He knew that were he to show the hatred in his heart, it would serve nothing, and it would harm others that felt as he. He chose to endure the punishment and was placed within the pillars of silence, so he might suffer for eternity. Lashed upon the pillars, Zerthimon moved his mind to a place where pain could not reach. Let me guess, submerge the will? Leaving his body behind. He lasted a turning, and when he was brought before Arlathi, twice deceased, he gave gratitude for his punishment to the Illithid, as was custom. In so doing, he proved himself a slave to the Illithid in the Illithid eyes, while his heart remained free. By enduring and quenching the fires of his hatred, he allowed Arlathi, twice deceased, to think him weak. When the time of the rising came, Arlathi was the first of the Illithid to know death by Zerthimon's hand and die a third death.
What is your will?
What did you come to know? Endure. In enduring, grow strong. I learned that sometimes a leader must suffer in order to protect his goals. 900 experience points gained. The words you speak seem to strike Dakan strangely. As you speak them, his forehead creases, then resettles into its normal passive expression. Your will has brought you the knowing of the third circle of Zerthimon. With this knowing, I impart this to you. He takes a circle, and with a deft motion, he twists one of the links so one of the plates slides forth. He hands the plate to you. Meditate upon its teachings, and the knowing of it shall give you strength. Is there more you can teach me? As you say the words, you suddenly notice that Dakan isn't looking at you. He is holding the unbroken circle in his hand, studying it. His blade has taken on the same texture as the unbroken circle, and Dakan suddenly seems older somehow. Dakan? Dakan's black eyes rise from the circle and look at you. Know that I did not believe you had come to know the teachings of the circle. It is a difficult path you will walk in learning the way of Zerthimon. Is your mind focused on this matter? Yes, I wish to learn more. Dakan's fingers feel around the edges of the stone circle, and he twists it clockwise, the links clinking until they have settled into a new configuration. He then reverses the motion, resetting the stone. The next circle of Zerthimon is open to you. Study it, and then I will hear your words. Very well, I will read it. But for now, I have Submerge the Will, which is usable only by mages and Nameless One. So would I be able to get these if I was... if I don't know. But that is a crappy spell. Or the one that I consider crappy, right? Yeah. I mean, my armor class is already 2. I mean, I suppose the saving throw bonus could be okay, but... I don't know, we'll go ahead and copy it. Alright, 4th circle time. Read the 4th circle. Know that the rising of the people against the Illithid was a thing built upon many 10 turnings of labor. Many of the people were gathered and taught in secret the ways of defeating their Illithid masters. They were taught to shield their minds and use them as weapons. They were taught the scripture of steel, and most importantly, they were given the knowing of freedom. Some of the people learned the nature of freedom and took it into their hearts. The knowing gave them strength. Others feared freedom and kept silent, but there were those that knew freedom and knew slavery, and it was their choice that the people remained chained. One of these was Vilquar. Vilquar saw no freedom in the Rising, but opportunity. He saw that the Illithid had spawned across many of the false worlds. Their worlds numbered so many that their vision was turned only outwards, to all they did not already touch. Vilquar's eye saw that much took place in the Illithid that the Illithid did not see. To the Rising, the Illithid were blinded. Vilquar came before his master, the Illithid Zigitaris, and with the knowing of the Rising. Vilquar added to his chains and offered to be their eyes against the Rising. In exchange, Vilquar asked that he be rewarded for his service. The Illithid agreed to his contract. At the bonding of the contract, a dark time occurred. Many were the betrayals Vilquar committed, and many were the people that the Illithid fed upon to stem the Rising. It seemed that the Rising would die before it could occur, and the Illithid were pleased with Vilquar's eye. It was near the end of this dark time when Zerthimon came to know Vilquar's treacheries. In knowing Vilquar's eye, Zerthimon forced the Rising to silence itself, so that Vilquar might think at last his treacheries had succeeded, and the Rising had fallen. He knew that Vilquar's eye was filled only with the reward he had been promised. He would see that what he wished to see. With greed beating in his heart, Vilquar came upon the Illithid Zigitaris, and spoke to his master of his success. He said that the Rising had fallen, and that the Illithids were safe to turn their eyes outward once more. He praised their wisdom in using Vilquar's eye, and he asked them for his reward. In his greed blindness, Vilquar had forgotten the knowing of why the people had sought freedom. He had lost the knowing of what slavery meant. He had forgotten what his Illithid masters saw when they looked upon him. And so Vilquar's betrayal of the people was ended with another betrayal. Vilquar came to know that when Vilquar's eye had nothing left to see, Vilquar's eye was useless. The Illithid gave to Vilquar his reward, opening the cavity of his skull and devouring his brain. Vilquar's corpse was cast upon the field of husks, so its blood might water the poison-stemmed grasses. Okay. It's pretty obvious that was going to happen. Alright, when one chooses to see without knowing, they betray themselves. When one chooses to see only what is before them, they see only a part of the whole. They are blind, and just as Vilquar was blinded by his promised reward, so were the Illithids blinded to the true Rising. For when they heard Vilquar's words, they turned their sight outwards again, didn't they? And the Rising was free to strike. 1,500 experience points. Know that you speak truly. Vilquar's eye blinded both Vilquar and the Illithids. The tentacled ones thought the Rising to be no more. When the Rising occurred, the ground drank deep of Illithid blood. So was victory born from treachery. It is a curious lesson. Why would it be part of the teachings of Zerthimon? Dagon's blade bleeds into a dead night black, and his voice deepens for a moment. You think he's angry, but you're not so sure. There is much about the way of Zerthimon and his path that is difficult to know. Do you know why Vilcor's Eye is part of the Way of Zerthimon? It is part of the telling of how our people came to know freedom. It lets us know that there are those, even among the people, who are not of the people, and that even in the greatest treachery, a greater knowing may be achieved. Very well. Gained item. You've come to know the fourth circle of Zerthimon. He takes a circle, etc., etc., etc. But no more. Okay. So I'll go ahead and copy that into our spellbook. Unlock the fifth circle. Zerthimon was the first to know the way of freedom, yet it was not he that first came to know the way of rebellion. The knowing of rebellion came to the warrior queen Gith, one of the people. She had served the Illithids upon many of the false worlds as a soldier, and she had come to know war and carried it in her heart. She had come to know how others might be organized to subjugate others. She knew the paths of power, and she knew the art of taking from the conquerors the weapons by which they could be defeated. Her mind was focused, and both her will and her blade were as one. The turning in which Zerthimon came to know Gith, Zerthimon ceased to know himself. Her words were as fires lit in the hearts of all who heard her. In hearing her words, he wished to know war. He knew not what afflicted him, but he knew he wished to join his blade to Gith. He wished to give his hate expression and share his pain with the Illithid. Gith was one of the people, but her knowing of herself was greater than any Zerthimon had ever encountered. She knew the ways of flesh, she knew the Illithids, and in knowing herself she was to know how to defeat them in battle. The strength of her knowing was so great that all those that walked her path came to know themselves. Gith was but one. Her strength was such that it caused others to know their strength, and Zerthimon laid his steel at her feet.
What is your will?
Alright. Let's go back to talking about teachings. Blah, 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 blah. Zerthimon learned to join with an even more powerful figure, Gith. Together the people grew stronger. There is great strength in numbers, but there is great power in one, for the strength of the will of one may gather numbers to it. There is strength not only in knowing the self, but knowing how to bring it forth in others. 3,000 experience points. You've come to know the fifth circle of Zerthimon. With this knowing, I impart this to you. I would know more. Right. Power of 1. That's the strength spell, I believe.
I will hear you.
Alright, sixth circle. I'll read the sixth circle. Upon the blasted plains, Zerthimon told Gith there cannot be two skies. In the wake of his words came war. Upon the blasted plains, the people had achieved victory over their Illithid masters. They knew freedom. Yet before the green fires had died from the battlefield, Gith spoke of continuing the war. Many, still filled with the bloodlust of their hearts, agreed with her. She spoke of not merely defeating the Illithids, but destroying all Illithids across the plains. After the Illithids had been exterminated, they would bring war to all other races they encountered. In Gith's heart, fires raged. She lived in war, and in war she knew herself. All that her eyes saw, she wanted to conquer. Zerthimon spoke of beginnings of that which was against Gith's will. He spoke that the people already knew freedom. Now they should know themselves again and mend the damage that had been done to the people. Behind his words were many other hearts of the people who were weary of the war against the Illithid. I'm trying to think back. I'd have to go. I really need to go pull up my Planescape material and see what it says about Gith Zerai and Gith Yankee. Because I vaguely recall that the split happened after Gith. Whatever. I mean, there's also one that I'm pretty sure is not going to be mentioned here. The Pirates of Gith, which is a shame. They're the spell-jamming Gith descendants. But they are almost certainly an offshoot of Githyanki rather than a co-equal branch. In part because of how they're described in appearance, their abilities, especially compared to the Githzerai. Their abilities are very similar, if not almost exactly the same as the Githyanki. And they can shift into the astral plane. So, in my opinion, they're the ones who broke off from the Githyanki when the Githyanki embraced the Lich Queens. But, whatever. Know that Gith's heart was not Zerthimon's heart on this matter. She said that the war would continue. The Illithid would be destroyed. Their flesh would be no more. Why is it always singular? Then the people would claim the false worlds as their own. Gith told Zerthimon that they would be under the same sky in this matter. The words were like bared steel. From Zerthimon came the pronouncement of two skies. In the wake of his words came war. Okay.
What is your will?
I have read it. Let's see. Zerthimon learned that even in freedom, one must continue fighting for freedom, even within one's own race. I know that Zerthimon's I wonder if these are the option when you don't have a high enough intelligence or something like that, or high enough wisdom. I know that Zerthimon's devotion to the people was such that he was willing to protect them from themselves. He knew the Illithids had come not to know themselves in their obsession with control and domination. So he chose to stop Gith before she carried the people to their deaths. There must be balance in all things, or else the self will not hold. 5,000 experience points and 2 items this time. You have seen the words and know them. Dakon's voice slows, and his hands grip the edges of the unbroken circle. He twists it clockwise, and there is a click as 2 plates slide forth. Dakon stares at the 2 plates in his hand. He makes no move to hand them to you. Dakon, is that second plate for you? Dakon falls silent. His blade has ceased shimmering, the film freezing upon its surface. He is staring at the second plate, paralyzed. Do you know the 6th circle? Dakon looks up, but his coal-black eyes do not meet your gaze. Know that there is nothing more I may teach you. You know the way as the people know it, and it shall give you the direction by which you may know yourself. That is not what I asked. Do you know the sixth circle or not? Dakon is silent for a moment, then speaks, his voice slow and careful. It has come to pass that I do not know the 6th circle of Zerthimon. Once I knew it, but I know now I only saw the words. Dakon's eyes stare through you. That is all. It is my path that I no longer know the way of Zerthimon. Was it because of what happened at Shrock-Lor? I do not know. The people became divided, and the people suffered. Upon reading the Unbroken Circle, I know now that I took the knowing of the 5th circle and used the power of 1 to bring about the 6th circle in Shrock-Lor. In so doing, I divided the people. There was much suffering. I carry Shrock-Lor with me always. Dakon, there was one other thing that I would know. Why is Vilquar's eye in the circle of Zerthimon? It seems strange. It tells of how the people benefited from a treachery from their own. It seems... Dakon's eyes flash. I have told you that it is part of the telling of how the people came to know freedom. Do you not listen? His voice flattens, as if he is reciting a passage from memory. It tells the people that even in the greatest treachery, a greater knowing may be achieved. It doesn't sound to me like you believe that. I think there's another reason Vilquar's eye is in the circle of Zerthimon. It is set there because of the 6th circle and the pronouncement of 2 skies. It's there to justify Zerthimon's treachery to the people upon the blasted plains. Dakon is silent, and his blade bleeds into a dead black, teeth rippling along the edge. He divided the people upon the blasted plains, Dakon. He divided your race when they were on the path of victory. I would like to believe that it was because he wished to save the people from themselves, but I don't think you believe that. Dakon is silent for a moment, then he speaks slowly. I do not know the 6th circle as it is known to others. I fear that the third circle, the fourth circle, and the sixth circle are more closely linked than many know. It is in that knowing that I have lost myself. In the third circle, Zerthimon submerged his will to deceive the Illithids. Then in the fourth circle, he speaks of the benefits of treachery. Then in the sixth circle, Zerthimon divides his people before they exterminated the Illithids. Do you think Zerthimon's words may not have been his own? Know my words, and know the wound that lies upon my heart. I fear that when Zerthimon was upon the Pillars of Silence, he did not submerge his will. I fear that his will was taken from him by the Illithids. And when he spoke upon the blasted plains, it was their words he spoke. I fear that what he did was not for the people's sake, but for our former masters. It's possible, but no, it doesn't necessarily mean that...
Updated my journal.
Then know this, and speak of it no more. Dekon's voice is like a knife. Know that I shall never know the truth. There is no resolution of this matter. For I shall never know Zerthimon's heart upon the blasted plains. His coal-black eyes glare at the stone circle in his hands. And so I do not know myself because of the unbroken circle of Zerthimon. Very well, Dekon. We'll discuss this no more. Let's move on. Achievement unlocked. Shattered Circle. Interesting. Balance in all things. Caster only. When hit the same number of times as level divided by 4, or 5 seconds per divided by level of caster. Usable only by mages, Dekon, and Nameless One. So, does that mean that, mages and Nameless One, that means that, okay, so I think that means that only, mages, Dekon as a mage, and Nameless One as a mage can learn this. Okay. Alright, so, that is a 3rd level spell. From the separation of the people came the knowing of two skies. From the knowing of two skies came the realization that hurting others hurts oneself. The spell only affects the caster. Whenever the caster is attacked while the spell is in effect, all hostile creatures within a 10-foot radius take equal damage. It lasts for 1 attack per 4 levels of the caster. And the effects are not cumulative. You cannot have more than 1 balanced spells erected. If the spell is not triggered, it lasts for 5 seconds per level of the caster. I'm not going to memorize that. I'm going to stick with Elysium's Tears and Ball Lightning. And let's see if I can use that again. Aha. Okay. Let's quick save again. Quick save again. Examine the plates, see if you can puzzle out any new combinations. 3,000 experience points. As you examine the plates, examine the rings of the 2nd circle, you find a strange link in the plate that mentions the laboring of the Gith people to achieving the rising. A new circle emerges from that link, and you unlock it, pulling the plate forth so you can study it. Know that the rising of the people against the Illithid was a thing built upon many turnings. Many were the people who lived and died under Time's blade while the rising was shaped. The rising was shaped upon a slow foundation. Steel was gathered so that it might mark Illithid flesh. A means of knowing the movements of the Illithids was established. At first weak and confused, then stronger, like a child finding its voice. When the movements were known, then the Illithids were observed. In observing them, their ways of the mind were known. When the ways of the Illithids were known, many of the people were gathered and taught in secret the means to shield their minds and the way to harness their will as weapons. They were taught the scripture of steel, and most importantly, they were given the knowing of freedom. These things were not learned quickly. The knowing of much of the ways was slow, and in all things time's weight fell upon all. From the knowing of one's reflection in a steel blade, to the knowing of the submerging the will, to the knowing of seeing itself. All these things and more the people built upon. In time, they came to know the whole. Okay, I did not get an item. Let's quick save again.
What is your will?
I've read the Unbroken Circle of Zerthimon. I want to speak with you more about the way of Zerthimon. There was a seventh circle within the Stone of Zerthimon. It spoke of the building of the rebellion event against the Illithids. Dakan falls silent. What does the seventh circle speak of? I don't know. It speaks of time and labor, but I haven't found meaning in it. When I come to know its wisdom, I shall share it with you. So maybe my stats aren't high enough? Intelligence 17, Wisdom 18. Well, it's certainly not based on his intelligence and wisdom, that's for sure. Okay, well, for now, we've done about all that we can with the Unbroken Circle of Zerthimon right now. Next time I gain a point of intelligence or wisdom, I will go ahead and attempt to, figure out some more from that and see if we can get another spell. I am genuinely surprised that I did not get Power of One. Oh, wait, no, did I? I did. Okay. All right. My mistake. For some reason, I thought that there were more. All right. No, never mind. Never mind. My mistake. Oh, right. I did not get Reign of Anger. Interesting. So I do not get a better magic missile spell. Although it's shorter range, so I guess there's that. Alright, well, next episode we will go ahead and talk to Ignis, see if he has anything that we can get spell-wise. See you then, everyone.